Thank you for coming by to listen to my talk on the hidden health costs of air pollution, which details a study conducted at the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, where we did in situ measurements with a mobile laboratory, collected targeted air samples, and did this in coordination with satellite and airborne remote sensing data. This study was conducted with internal funding. The coronavirus hit the U.S. hard, and as a result, there were significant reductions in economic activity across the nation, and in particular at our nation's ports, which bring goods and other items into and out of the country. Our focus was the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, the busiest in the Western Hemisphere, to try to characterize the reduction in air pollution from the lockdown orders. We hypothesized, though, that refinery and some other industrial activity would continue to produce emissions as normal, while activity related to the ports, transportation, commuting, cars, and so on would be greatly reduced. We also designed the study to collect data as economic conditions began to return to normal over the subsequent months. The RI developed SISTER, which is our standard instrumentation suite, including aerosol size analyzers, ceilometer for measuring aerosol profile, trace gas sensors, as well as the necessary vacuum, compressed air, data, and power to support the instrumentations in a 12 or 1,300 pound box, which we can crane load into the back of the pickup truck. Here we see it shown in TMOG, a four-wheel drive pickup truck for off-road data collection, which supports via a truss on the roof rack, a sonic anemometer mounted at the front of the truck to avoid effects of the bow wave, as well as trace gas inlets, which are Teflon lined. Trace gas sample tubes are bundled into a blue conduit for ease of installation. We also have a PM210 aerosol inlet to collect high-quality aerosol data while driving at up to highway speed. All analyzers in the entire system is designed to collect data at up to highway speed. SISTER supports, or SIS, when it's not in the back of the pickup truck, supports a range of analyzers, some using cavity-enhanced absorption spectroscopy, some using fluorescence or chemoluminescence. These are exemplified by our Thermo Fisher column. These analyzers are vibration sensitive and so are mounted in an air suspension rig to reduce vibrations for them. Additionally, we have a large vacuum pump that brings sample down for several of the analyzers, as well as, in other cases, powering bypass to speed the time response and reduce mixing in tubes. We can collect air samples targeted in canisters, pressurized to 2 bar, at specific locations decided to meet the science needs of the mission. All of the analyzers have individual PFA filters, which are in a shelter outside for easy access to change. As well, we also have redundant GPS, since if you don't know where you are, you don't know much of anything in terms of these data, as well as pressure, temperature, humidity sensors and a radiation shield. The SIS also includes a number of serial servers to allow us to combine data streams from all of the analyzers in real time. And we use both a ceilometer and an aerosol size analyzer to characterize aerosol profile and size. The size analyzer collects aerosols through a knife edge tube in the center of a stainless steel drawdown tube whose velocity is matched to that of the aerosol analyzer. This aerosol analyzer has a changeable filter that can be used to collect samples for later chemical or mass analysis to derive mean aerosol density. SIS measures 14 trace gases, mostly at subpart per billion precision, as well as aerosol, size and profile, and standard meteorology. A list here provides details on our science package. A key sister feature is our real-time visualization, enabled in the MATLAB environment and the Google Earth, in which we real-time integrate the data streams from the various analyzers, allowing the operators to determine whether to adapt the survey strategy, whether to go slower, return and collect further data, or stop and collect an air sample. There also are diagnostics of instrumentation performance to identify when problems are developing, such as overheating. Amok Surveyor was created in 2020 to enable us to collect data offshore and off-road. It superseded Amok Surveyor, which was used for measurements in 2019 at the ports during the summer. Amok Surveyor included a generator to supply power in a box mounted off of a hitch, as well as redundant GPS, 3D sonic anemometer, real-time data integration. Here you can see a picture of Amok Surveyor in front of the research dairy at Cal Poly. The study area was the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, the busiest in the nation. In 2018, they transferred 17.88 million 20-foot container equivalents. These two ports are surrounded by the communities of San Pedro, Wilmington, Carson, and North Long Beach and South Long Beach. San Pedro is generally upwind. Wilmington, Carson, and the Long Beach communities are downwind of the ports and other industries. These neighborhoods are highly diverse. For example, Wilmington is 72% Hispanic. South Long Beach is 57% Hispanic and extremely dense, with an average of 10,300 residents per square mile. There is also high rates of impoverishment in these communities. The ports themselves are surrounded by significant industry, including refining capacity, a calciner that makes coke for aluminum production, wastewater treatment, as well as other industrial activities. There are 6 air quality stations in the vicinity of the ports for which data were analyzed, including ones near San Pedro and the coast, source dominated in the center of the ports, letter D, as well as one in Wilmington, and 2 air quality stations to the west of the I-710 and Long Beach, the harbor stations. Our hypothesis was that whereas emissions from the ports, which are primarily related to heavy diesel trucks, would be reduced during the period of the air quality improvement from lockdowns and decreased economic activity, emissions from refineries and other heavy industry would continue unabated. A total of 5 surveys were collected to date for this study, 4 of which have been analyzed. This includes an Amok Surveyor survey in 2019 under normal port conditions, which are typically non-stop beehive of activity with lines of heavy diesel trucks on all the major roadways around the port and the 710. On the 7th of May, there was a complete absence of any activity. Only a few trucks were seen in the entire port area. The 710 was empty. This was as well as many of the highways down to the port and so on were extremely unerringly empty compared to normal Los Angeles traffic in the middle of the day. A comparison of the long-term data at the Inner Harbor Air Quality Station showed a significant decrease in March and April of 2020 compared to the same period of the year before. There are also increases in the summer, and in particular in September, in which particulate matter was being increased by forest fires. 2020 was an exceptional year for forest fires. The air quality changes recorded at the Inner Harbor Station for PM 2.5 were much more dramatically represented in terms of NO2, nitrogen dioxide, in which the levels in March and April, as well as May and June of 2020, were significantly depressed compared to those same periods in 2019. NO2, especially near the I-710, is primarily going to be sourced from diesel trucks. Surprisingly, perhaps, the ozone levels increased slightly. And this makes sense in that the NO2 was not able to absorb as much of the odd oxygen from ozone, leaving slightly higher, though not significantly, levels of ozone at the Inner Harbor Air Quality Station. The air quality station differences between 2019 and 2020 understate the actual changes because they are averaged over the diurnal cycle, in which much of the time winds are not coming from sources, as well as decreases with distance from sources during transport. In July 2019, high levels of NO2 and NOx were observed, as high as several hundred parts per billion. These are quite extensive. A repeat of the same roads in 2020 showed NO2 values that were on the order of a 20th to a 50th the same level. In May, the levels were even lower. However, of course, there's a seasonal variation difference between May and July, hence the focus on the 2 July measurements. There also was a significant difference between NO and NO2, the ratio from 2019 to 2020, which is shown by the grayscale spheres on the surface. For example, in 2020, there was primarily, or black, i.e., very primarily NO2 old NOx, whereas in 2019 there were plenty of local fresh sources of NOx, as indicated by white high NO over NO2 ratios.